There is a version of your life happening right now that most people never examine closely enough to understand. It is not defined by your job title, your neighborhood, or the car sitting in your driveway. It is defined by a single number that most people either don't know or know and try not to think about. That number is your net worth, and depending on where it sits today, it is quietly shaping almost every decision you make, every option you have access to, and every kind of stress that follows you into sleep at night. Net worth is not income. That distinction matters more than almost anything else in personal finance. Income is a flow, money moving through your life. Net worth is a position, the total of everything you own minus everything you owe. Two people can earn identical salaries and live at completely different levels of financial reality, depending on how much of that income they've been able to convert into permanent position. And what most people don't realize is that each level of net worth doesn't just change your bank balance. It changes your psychology, your decision-making, your relationship to risk, and the texture of your daily life in ways that are almost invisible from the outside. At negative net worth, which is where millions of people begin, carrying student loans, credit card balances, or medical debt before they've had the chance to accumulate anything, every financial decision is made under a kind of low-level pressure that rarely lifts. Psychologists call this scarcity mindset, and the research is consistent. When the mind is preoccupied with financial shortfall, cognitive bandwidth for long-term planning measurably decreases. You are not bad with money at this level. You are operating a system with no margin, and systems without margin are systems that cannot absorb error. One unexpected expense, a car repair, a medical bill, a missed shift, doesn't just cost money. It resets the clock entirely.
Moving into the $0 to $10,000 range changes something subtle but real. This is the threshold researchers sometimes call the emergency buffer zone, and its psychological effect is disproportionate to its size. Having even $3,000 to $5,000 sitting in a savings account doesn't make you wealthy by any mathematical definition, but it breaks the direct link between a minor crisis and a financial catastrophe. The mind begins, slowly, to operate with slightly longer time horizons. Decisions that previously felt impossible to delay become possible to think about. This is not comfort, but it is the beginning of agency. Between $10,000 and $100,000, the character of financial life shifts again. This is the range where behavior begins to compound, not yet dramatically, but meaningfully. Someone at $50,000 in net worth is likely experiencing, for the first time, the sensation of money working in the background, investment accounts growing slowly, interest accumulating rather than being paid. The gap between this level and the level below it is not primarily mathematical, it is psychological. People here begin to think about money less urgently, which paradoxically allows them to make better decisions about it. The $100,000 threshold is one of the most documented inflection points in personal finance research. At this level, compound growth begins to generate numbers that feel real in annual terms. A portfolio at $100,000 growing at 7% annually produces $7,000 in a year, not enough to live on, but enough to be visible, enough to feel like a system operating independently of your labor. This is the level where the concept of financial independence shifts from abstraction to trajectory.
From $100,000 to $1 million, the dominant variable is time and consistency more than strategy. The math does not require sophistication at this stage. It requires patience and the avoidance of large errors. People who reach $1 million in net worth have, in most cases, not done anything dramatically clever. They have avoided the wealth-destroying behaviors, chronic lifestyle inflation, panic selling, high-interest debt accumulation, long enough for compounding to do its arithmetic. The millionaire threshold still carries cultural weight disproportionate to its current purchasing power, but psychologically, crossing it tends to produce a quieter relationship with money rather than a louder one. Between $1 million and $10 million, the nature of financial life changes in ways that are harder to articulate. Risk becomes optional rather than structural. Career decisions decouple from pure income necessity. Healthcare, housing, and education stop being sources of financial anxiety and become simple logistical choices. This is what researchers mean when they talk about financial freedom, not as a feeling, but as a structural condition. The point at which your capital, not your labor, is primarily responsible for your financial stability. Studies examining self-reported well-being consistently show that life satisfaction increases measurably up to roughly this range, after which additional wealth shows diminishing returns on happiness. What this progression reveals is not a story about money, it is a story about optionality, about how each threshold unlocks a slightly different relationship with time, with risk, and with the mental energy that financial pressure consumes. The goal, understood clearly, is not a specific number. It is the removal, one level at a time, of the kind of financial friction that quietly limits how freely a person can think, choose, and act. Every level is better than the one below it, not because of what it buys, but because of what it stops costing you.